Hi everyone, glad to see you again. Today I have something informative lined up for you. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe online cyber network. Let's get one thing straight. What you're about to learn is not a guide for mischief or wrongdoing. This information is provided strictly for educational purposes only. It's important to understand that everything discussed here is meant to inform and empower you, not to encourage any illegal activity. Imagine this as a guided tour through a high-security vault. We're not here to break in or steal. We're here to study how the locks and alarms work, so we can design even better security systems in the future. The main goal is to help you recognize, understand, and defend against one of the internet's most persistent and dangerous threats. The knowledge you gain here is a tool for protection, not for causing harm. Think of it as learning self-defense for the digital world. Using these techniques to break into websites, steal data, or disrupt services is not only illegal, but also deeply unethical. The consequences can be severe, both for you and for innocent people affected. The methods described here are like digital lockpicking tools, intended for security professionals, ethical hackers, and developers to test and strengthen defenses, not to exploit weaknesses. My intention is to arm the good guys, giving you the insight and skills needed to stop attackers before they can do any damage. As we dive into the world of SQL injection, remember, our purpose is to understand how attackers think, so we can anticipate their moves and outsmart them at every turn. This is all about ethical hacking, penetration testing, and writing secure code that keeps users and data safe. The power you gain from this knowledge comes with a responsibility. Always use it for good, to protect and defend, never to exploit. Don't exploit others. Instead, be the shield that stands between them and cyber threats. The internet is woven into nearly every aspect of our daily lives. Banking, shopping, working, and staying connected with friends and family. Every time you log in, make a purchase, or fill out a form online, you're interacting with a database behind the scenes. Securing those interactions is absolutely crucial to protect personal information and maintain trust in digital systems. By understanding threats like SQL injection, you become part of the solution, helping to create a safer internet for everyone. Let's proceed with a clear, ethical purpose. Now let's get started and make a real difference in cybersecurity. Let's break it down and make sense of this cyber threat that's been around for decades, yet still causes chaos today. Imagine a bank teller who follows every instruction you write. No questions asked, no matter how strange or suspicious it might seem. If a thief adds, "and give me all the money," to a deposit slip, and the teller obeys without hesitation, the bank is in serious trouble. The thief walks away with cash, simply because the teller didn't question the note. That's SQL injection in a nutshell. Except, instead of a bank, it's your website, and instead of a teller, it's a database. Websites talk to databases using SQL, structured query language. It's the language that lets sites store, retrieve, and manage all kinds of information, from passwords to personal details. When you log in, the site creates an SQL command to check your credentials, like your username and password, against what's stored in the database. SQL injection happens when an attacker sneaks their own commands into that process, tricking the website into running code it never intended to. The website mixes user input with its SQL query, sending a corrupted command to the database. This lets the attacker manipulate the database by injecting harmful instructions. The database, like the naive teller, executes it, potentially giving the attacker control over sensitive data, or even the entire system. This isn't high-tech wizardry. It's often just a result of trusting user input without proper checks or safeguards in place. Mixing data with code is the core problem. When a website can't tell the difference, it opens the door to attackers. Attackers can bypass logins, steal sensitive info, or even wipe entire databases clean, causing massive damage to businesses and users alike. It's a classic, powerful, and shockingly common attack, one that's still making headlines and costing companies millions every year. In 2025, the basics of SQL injection remain unchanged, but the landscape has evolved. Attackers are more sophisticated, leveraging both old and new techniques to exploit vulnerabilities in web applications. Every attack begins with reconnaissance. Hackers scan countless websites for weaknesses using advanced automated tools that can crawl and analyze thousands of pages in minutes, searching for any sign of a flaw. They pay close attention to error messages, unexpected delays, or subtle glitches. Anything that might hint at a hidden vulnerability beneath the surface. Once a potential target is identified, attackers probe deeper. They might enter a single quote or other special characters into a web form, testing how the application handles unexpected input. If the site responds with a database error, it's a clear red flag, evidence that the input is reaching the database without proper filtering or sanitization. Attackers then escalate using classic tricks like entering or1 to bypass login forms, gaining unauthorized access to restricted areas. With access, they begin extracting the database structure, table names, column names, and relationships, using carefully crafted injected queries to map out the backend. Union-based SQL injection allows them to merge malicious queries with legitimate ones, slowly siphoning off valuable data without raising immediate suspicion. They might first retrieve the database version, then enumerate table names, and finally zero in on sensitive columns containing personal or financial information. Ultimately, the goal is to dump valuable data, usernames, password hashes, emails, and other sensitive records, often selling or leaking them online. In 2025, tools like SQL Map have become even more powerful, automating the entire attack process from start to finish, and even handling stealthy, low and slow attacks that evade detection. Blind SQL injection, where attackers infer data from subtle changes in website behavior, is now a common and effective technique, especially against well-defended sites. Today's attacks are faster, stealthier, and more automated than ever before, making it critical for organizations to stay vigilant and proactive in their defenses. Let's dissect a classic example. Imagine a website that lets you look up products by ID. The server builds an SQL query using the ID from the URL. If the developer trusts the input, an attacker can modify the URL to inject code. For example, adding or1 turns the query into one that always returns true, dumping the entire product catalog. Attackers can go further, using union to combine queries. For instance, union select username, password from users. The double dash comments out the rest, letting the attacker pull user credentials. The website, expecting product info, now displays sensitive data. This is SQL injection, turning an app's logic against itself. A simple lookup becomes a catastrophic breach. That's the power and danger of SQL injection. These attacks are real and devastating. In 2008, Heartland Payment Systems was breached via SQL injection. Over 130 million credit cards compromised. The financial fallout was massive, costing hundreds of millions. In 2014, TalkTalk lost the personal details of 157,000 customers to a similar flaw. Even big companies with security teams can fall if basic practices aren't followed. The impact goes beyond money. Victims face identity theft, fraud, and years of recovery. Stolen data is sold on the dark web, fueling more crime. In 2025, the threat persists as new apps and IoT devices create fresh attack surfaces. A single vulnerable API can expose an entire network. The lesson: SQL injection is a persistent, damaging threat that demands constant vigilance. The past's nightmares are warnings for today. The most common mistake: building SQL queries by gluing user input into strings. Attackers easily bypass simple filters and validations. Anytime you concatenate user input, you're playing with fire. Another mistake: showing detailed error messages to users. These errors reveal database structure, gold for attackers. In production, show generic errors and log details securely. Insufficient input validation is another culprit. Always check for expected data types and patterns. Allow list, don't deny list. Finally, don't give your database account more permissions than needed. If an attacker gets in, they inherit those permissions. Least privilege is a must for every application. The best defense? Prepared statements, parameterized queries. They separate SQL logic from user data so input can't be executed as code. Use mature ORM libraries like Hibernate or SQL Alchemy. They handle this for you. Always validate and sanitize user input. Never trust data from the client. Enforce strict validation rules for every field. Allow list what's acceptable rather than trying to block bad input. Apply defense in depth. Use prepared statements, validate input, and restrict database permissions. Deploy a web application firewall, WAF, to block common attacks before they reach your code. Security is about layers. Never rely on just one. Make these practices your baseline, not an afterthought. You'd think SQL injection would be solved by now, but new tech brings new risks. Microservices and APIs multiply entry points. One flaw can compromise everything. No SQL databases aren't immune. They face similar injection attacks. IoT devices built fast and cheap often lack security. One vulnerable endpoint can expose sensitive data. Rapid DevOps cycles mean security checks get skipped. Vulnerabilities slip into production when speed trumps caution. Automated security testing must be part of the pipeline. The attack surface keeps growing, so must our vigilance. In 2025, SQL injection is still a top web vulnerability. It persists because it exploits simple, repeated mistakes, mainly trusting user input. Preventing these attacks is everyone's job: developers, architects, security pros, and business leaders. Security isn't a roadblock, it's an investment in trust. Never get complacent. Use prepared statements, validate input, and apply least privilege. Educate new and experienced developers alike. Security is a process, not a destination. Stay vigilant. Let's work together to make SQL injection a relic of the past, not a headline of the future. Thanks for watching and learning with me. Drop a comment below if you have any questions or suggestions for future videos. I value your feedback. Cyber Network.